So I just completed the final mission on XCOM 2, and kind of mad at myself for not recording the very end of it. I didn't record the whole thing because it was so long. I did it in parts, and I just didn't feel like recording each little leg of it would be fun to watch. Plus, I kind of went in expecting to have to redo it over and over again because it'd be pretty tough. So unfortunately, I don't have that recorded, but I did go ahead and record now, so I can look at the stats. This, you know, if you're watching, that's cool, but this is really just for me to be able to go back and see all my statistics at the end of the game. Looking at this first page, the most interesting stat is soldiers lost. There's only 2. Believe it or not, I didn't really save scum. I think I did once, but it was because the whole mission was basically going tits up, and I guess I should have just let the mission fail in hindsight. So I did want, but otherwise I really didn't. I did always take healers with medikits into every battle, so I healed pretty regularly. Now one thing about that stat is I don't think it counts my final because in the final mission I did have a soldier take a hit and was bleeding out, and when the final kill happened that ended the mission, her counter hadn't reached down, so I guess she still counts as being alive. So technically I'd lost 3, but still, for me and in XCOM, it's an extraordinarily low number. I guarantee you that an enemy unknown, I probably lost at least 5 times that many people. I remember losing an entire squad in a mission once. So that's an anomaly. That is not, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's indicative of my skill as much as my playstyle, in that I'm constantly healing. I know one of those off the top of my head was definitely a sectopod one-shot. Completely took a soldier from full health and armor to nothing. That was pretty brutal. As for the rest of the stats, you know, I only have myself as a baseline. Flawless missions. I don't know what's considered, you know, good, or maybe not even good is the right word, as much as normal or average, but I'm pretty happy with 13 flawless. I mean, that's great. Most of those probably came towards the end, as my soldiers were fairly overpowered. 1.44 turns left on mission timers shows that I was not very good at timed missions. It took me a while, and I think actually both of those lost missions were probably timed ones. I'm not 100% sure, but I only had 1 Magi because I didn't start working on psionic soldiers till probably the last third of the game, which in hindsight is a huge regret. And if you are watching this and you're looking for any tips, one of my biggest tips is once you've done kind of the essentials like your guerrilla tactics school, your advanced warfare center, get on the Psi Lab. Oh my gosh, what a difference psionic soldiers would have made in the mid-game for me, which is probably when the game was kind of the hardest. Well, the beginning of the game was pretty tough too, but I think mid-game is kind of where I was really, really sweating. But yeah, the rest of these numbers, I don't know. They're kind of meaningless without some sort of metric. When I finished the final mission, it tried to connect to the world server, which I'm assuming it would have maybe compared these to other players, but there's some sort of bug that doesn't allow that to load, so we don't know. But now that I've recorded this, maybe I can take this data and find a place online, kind of a repository that shows this stuff. So maybe the biggest thing that's interesting to me is this stat shows how long it took me to research stuff, and so it took me a while to get to magnetic weapons. but you know, less than 50% of that time to jump to beam weapons. So you can see I was really rushing my research on my weapons at that point. You can also see that armor was clearly my big focus in early game, and then powered armor, it took me a long time to get there. Alien encryption is probably a much lower number for most people, but the reason it took so long for me was because I knew those were story objectives. I kind of let them sit on the back burner while I upgraded my weapons, because I learned in the first game, you know, certain enemies wouldn't pop up until you hit certain objectives, so that was my logic on this one. What I realized was that wasn't how it worked. Instead, it was calendared. Once you hit a certain month, certain enemies would appear. So I ended up getting Andromedons and Gatekeepers, even though I probably wasn't quite ready for them. Maybe not Gatekeepers, but definitely Andromedons. So the weight on the alien encryption was basically pointless for me. Radio relays. I only built one because I didn't even understand, like, I don't know if it wasn't explained in-game, or if I'm just dumb, and I just didn't pick up on it, but after you've made contact with a region, I didn't realize you could make a radio relay to increase your supplies. I guess when I would hover on them, I saw that you could click X, but I didn't think it actually gave you anything to do. So that's a pretty pathetic number. And it also, that much like some of the other stats, it makes me wonder if I'd realized that radio relays were a thing in early game, I would have had such a struggle, because lack of supplies was certainly a wall that I kept hitting. I didn't use the black market a whole lot. You know, I didn't like selling things because anything you have, you need for a researcher to build stuff. And so to me, that was just as necessary as supplies. So I didn't use it too much. I did buy some stuff, but I don't think I really sold much. And then the intel, I don't know if that's good or not. So that's it. So now it looks like it's just credits. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the broadcast. Maybe there's a little post-credit scene, I don't know, but if there is, you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. You don't need me, and you don't want to watch credits. So if you are still watching, and I'm amazed you're watching at all, if you've watched any of my other videos, thank you. I didn't post a ton of XCOM videos. I tended to think, because of the nature of the turn-based and because of my kind of slow, methodical way to play, they wouldn't have been very entertaining. So if you did watch and you did enjoy them, thank you. If you watched and you didn't enjoy them, thank you, because why did you keep watching except maybe just to support me? So I appreciate that. If I'm gonna play War of the Chosen, I haven't decided. It's certainly not a must-get for me right now. There's some things about it that don't really pique my interest. I don't like the villain Nemesis. I think that's what's called, the Nemesis thing they've introduced. They ripped it from Shadows of Mordor. The thing that I like about XCOM is it's just waves and waves of faceless enemies. And so once you have these recurring villains, that, I don't know, that to me makes it less XCOM-y. And they're very humanoid looking, so they're not as frightening as something like a Faceless or an Enemy Unknown, a Floater. Like, these were these very alien and bizarre designs, chrysalids, you know. And so I don't know. I also don't really like the Lost concept. It's zombies, and I mean, I get it's interesting, I guess, that they can attack your enemies as well as you, but I don't need zombies in my cool science fiction game. Like, it just, for me, maybe it works, but from the outside looking in, it doesn't engender any good feelings for me. That said, there are some things about War of the Chosen that I think do look interesting. You know, while I don't like the idea of villains, or not villains, but aliens in this game that, you know, are recurring and have, I guess, for lack of a better word, character development, I do like that for the soldier side. So I like that your soldiers form bonds with each other, and I like that when those bonds, if they go well or if things go awry, they affect your soldiers positively and negatively. I think that's really interesting. I like some of the new factions they've introduced, some of those abilities, those sound pretty cool. I like the idea of Advent soldiers that have defected. I think that's really interesting. So I'm very torn on War of the Chosen, because there are things about it that sound really cool and things about it that don't sound nice at all. Things that just really turn me off. It may be a moot point, however, because I asked for XCOM 2 for Christmas last year and received it, and I don't know how they did this. I really don't, because when you search XCOM 2 on Amazon, American version's the first thing that pops up, but somehow my parents bought the UK version, which is fine in terms of playing it in and of itself, because PS4s are region free. Unfortunately, any content that I want to add to it, I believe, also has to be the UK version. So if I want to play War of the Chosen, I have to buy the UK version, which may not be an issue, but there's a part of me that's a little skeptical about, like, I just worry that I'm going to get it and it's not going to work, so there's that. So yeah, I think that's most, if not all, of my thoughts on War of the Chosen, so stay tuned. Maybe I'll be playing it, but I probably won't. Or I shouldn't say probably, but I really can't say that I will be playing it. I am going to take an XCOM break. I've got a lot of other games that I really want to get through, and I'm just kind of rattled after that final mission. But it is a game that I would like to return to, maybe on a different difficulty, or maybe an Iron Man mode, but on the same difficulty, or maybe Iron Man mode on an easier difficulty, or if there's any, I don't recall, but Enemy Unknown had second wave options. If that's an option for this, that would be interesting. Something to spice it up, but if I do that, I will definitely post that gameplay. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.